Welcome to a bonus episode of Games from Folktales. The 300th episode just went live. It's not numbered episode 300 because early on I mucked up the release schedule, but that's where we are. It won't be a big celebratory episode this time because it's a somber year filled with exhaustion. This has been a tricky year, and in terms of Games from Folktales, it still hasn't quite found its equilibrium since I let a raft of episodes free when people in the Northern Hemisphere were in lockdown. The ship should right itself in time. In the new year, you can expect one episode from each of 3 running series per month, plus an extra episode or 2, depending on how many weeks there are in the month, from whatever I've been researching at the time. This is basically because I've been spending all my research time on Magonomia. The 3 series are Venice, the King of Elfland's Daughter, and the Pentamerone. The first Pentamerone episode was just brought forward to fill the gap I'd left for 300, which was to be the completion of my Post a Day project over on the Atlas forums. Post a Day is an aspirational project where we make useful things even when we fail, so I don't feel terrible that it's stalled at 12 monsters. I'm not really happy with the way the Pentamerone episodes have turned out because I didn't understand my source material was as bowdlerized as it is. My initial plan was to use the public domain source I had to tell the 32 stories which were republished in the Victorian era for children, and then use a modern translation to add the 18 excised stories. The problem is that the 32 have been severely hacked about. In the case of the 3 I just released, the changes vary from minor things. The flea, for example, grows to the size of a sheep because it's feeding on royal blood, which is possibly Viz, to major things. A third of the Hydra story is missing, and the Cinderella we are following is a cold-blooded murderess in the original. I'm going to record little supplementary episodes to tack onto each Pentamerone episode already recorded to explain the difference. These won't be part of your weekly cycle, and I can't just edit them in because of how my podcast plan works. In terms of how the podcast's going, well, it's not going to take Joe Rogan's crown anytime soon, but that was never the goal. My goal is to give you a little bit of ours each week to keep a pilot light burning for the metagame. There were just over 1,200 downloads in November. That's not just for the 4 episodes, it does include people arriving and downloading the whole back catalogue, so it can be hard to tell how many regular listeners the podcast has. I'm certain it's above 30 and think it's around 50. To really nail it down, I'd need to pay my podcast hosts slightly more per month, and I don't think it's worth the money. That number may seem small, but that's just because you're used to Night Vale numbers. I like to think of it as 50 of you turning up for a chat once a week, and that seems like an extraordinarily large number. Also, everyone's numbers are small this year. The lack of commuters in the US and UK has torpedoed podcasting. I'd like more, of course, but the goal was never get a lot of subscribers, sell them ads, and then retire. It's just to be amusing and useful, and the podcast seems to be fulfilling that goal. Games from Folktales now covers its hosting fees thanks to the Patreons. Every so often there's a little bit of extra money left over, and I use that to expand the podcasting plan and lengthen the episodes, which is why you'll notice that next year the average length per month will be about half an hour longer than the average length per month this year. I also bought my first ebook specifically for Games from Folktales research because the interlibrary loan system in Australia is currently closed. To give you some idea of what's coming up, it's Daughters of Alchemy by Meredith K. Ray. I started Venice with a metaplot I liked, and then Jason noticed something in it that I think is superior to the metaplot I was working on. Certainly it's less high fantasy. I was blindsided by that better thing, and I really need to look into it because I think it has more value for new players who don't care about characters like Titalis and those sorts of people. I'd like to thank you all. You've been a great comfort in what has been a trying year.